Hello, good evening, good afternoon, and good morning for wherever you are. Thank you for attending this live webinar. Before we start, I just hope that everybody can hear me. Just want to make sure that it can be heard. Okay. Okay, let's start. Let's start now. So before we go into my slides, okay. First of all, I hope everybody is doing fine, staying at home today, and practicing your social distancing and working from home. So for those of you who are working from home, I hope you are getting it together. So I've been working from home since the MCO started here in Malaysia. Hi Joel, hi Noel, thanks for coming. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin tonight. So today I am going to talk about SHADOWPLAY. Now SHADOWPLAY is a recent, actually not recent, it's a 2 years film, an independent film that we made 2 years ago, and recently we have won at the Neo South Independent Film Festival in Johor for a few awards. So before we go into that, let's see what we have here. Okay, so first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Isa Zali. I'm the post-producer for SHADOWPLAY, and I'm also a Blackmagic design master trainer here in Malaysia. So if you're familiar with software, editing software, color grading software called DaVinci Resolve, I am the guy here. You need to teach you and train you to be a certified end user. Okay, so now this webinar is actually supported by the 3 main producing company, which is 2710 Productions, that is based in the UK, Radical Films, that is based in KL, and of course my own company, Kino Eye Pictures. So these are the 3 producing company that produces SHADOWPLAY. And before we come into SHADOWPLAY, let me tell you a bit about what Kino Eye, my company, have been doing for the past years since we started. So we've started with a feature film, an independent feature film in Malaysia entitled Lips to Lips. Now this was directed by Amir Muhammad in 2001. It was released in 2001, and it was known as the first independent digital feature film that was made. Now this was recorded on a mini DV technology back then. Now mini DV is a small little tape, and it's only a standard definition. There wasn't a high definition back then. When we were starting. So that was the first digital technology that came around. And so we thought, well, Dancer in the Dark was won some awards for making the same digital features. So why not we make the same thing, okay, with the same technology. Oops, give me a second. Alright, so the film actually traveled to a lot of film festivals all over the world. Back then, it was 2001. I remember I and Amir Muhammad, we traveled various international film festivals. Now this was done without proper filmmaking procedure in Malaysia back then. It was called independent because we broke every known rule in filmmaking almost 20 years ago. But we managed to go into international film festivals with this small little film, and that started my career and also Kino Eye Pictures as a fully independent production and post-production house ever since. Okay, so so there was a book published by Mr. Hassan Muttalib back in 2013 that wrote actually the whole process, or the whole entire independent group that started back in the early 2000s. It's called Malaysian Cinema in a Bottle, and I remember in the chapter by the late Dr. Anwar Rai, he said, with a little cinema of Malaysia. And also Hassan Muttalib said the breaking rules was become a key factor in the digital filmmaking revolution in Malaysia. This is what he coined us, the little cinema of Malaysia back then. So we are the rule breaker. But nice ones. Okay, so ever since, we have been producing a lot of small little or major feature films during those years, and some of which you might be familiar here, like after Lips to Lips, it was Susuk. Susuk was Amir Muhammad's first feature film that was done in a big budget, in proper production group, and a bigger budget, right? And there's a few more that goes along the way. So these are some of the projects that I've done, or my company have done. And one of the most important chapter in one of the projects that we've done was a collaboration between a US company called Future History Films. This was about 2017, way before SHADOWPLAY was made. I've produced and edited a documentary that was about the Zika virus, and we have won also a few awards in some international festivals, and the most important one that we've been is the Hollywood Film Festival for the best documentary shot in 2017. Now sadly I couldn't be there, but my director and my cinematographer was there, and so that's started up the whole festival route again, since the days of Lips to Lips was like a repeat. And then in 2018, I remember Tony Petra came to me that he had an idea to do this feature film, but he wants me to co-produce and try to find funding and whatnot just to create this piece that he wants to make. And so, to cut the story short, everything falls into place, and we have SHADOWPLAY that recently and also last year we've won Best Digital Feature, Best Digital Cinematography for Malaysian Digital Awards 2019, and 5 other awards that won recently the NeoSoft Independent Film Festival. So thank you for the juries for selecting this. But my aim here is not to talk about this winning part. It is about the whole process of how SHADOWPLAY was put together in a small time, small budget, but with big people that works around it. Now this is Tony Arjuna Petra, I'll call him Tony Petra. He's the writer-director for SHADOWPLAY. And yes, Tony, thank you. Oh, Tony, here, yes. Mr. Tony is watching me right now, so I hope I don't screw this up. So, as you can read, Tony was an editor before he broke into directing episodes for Popia Pictures, Ghost, the 8 TV supernatural series that won Special Jury Award back then. So, other than that, he's been doing documentaries, editing. I think he was, before he was a director, he was like myself. He was an editor a lot, right, Tony? So I think I'm right over there. And when he wanted to make this shadow play, he showed me about what a neo-noir segment that he had from Chua. And then so I feel like, well, we can sort of do this together and we'll see how it goes. So I just was waiting for his script, and he said he has this script written and he wants me to take a look, and everything then falls into place. We put everything together in a short time, the crew and everything. So so what's SHADOWPLAY is all about? So this is the synopsis of SHADOWPLAY. Oops, a second. Oh, that's too fast. Okay, this is the synopsis. For those who have not watched this, I hope I don't give any spoilers here, but I don't think there's spoilers I'm going to give you, but anyway, it's a story about Anton Shaw, a private investigator with the Peter Pan syndrome, which is played by Tony Yusuf over here, who's hired to find a woman whose disappearance might be linked to a traumatic event in his childhood. While investigating the case, his romantic obsession with the missing lady awakens evil, otherworldly forces from his youth, childhood dreams and nightmares in a grown-up eyes. When I saw his pitch deck, I was like, dreams. Now I had these ideas of, I used to like to write down dreams that I dream about. And it is sometimes, when you come to a point where you are dreaming, you kind of think of like deja vu moments, those deja vu where you think that it happened before. And this film is actually like that. This has mysteries and adventures and whatnot. If you have watched this, you probably know, but if not, you can get to watch it later. I'll share you the link where you can watch it and support the film. Okay, check. Oops, sorry, this is getting too fast. Okay, so the first stage that before we begin, of course, we went to a process of pre-production. So what are there during the pre-production period? Now, a lot of times when we have pre-production, people thought of just reading scripts, casting, basically much about that, right? So there's actually a lot more that goes on during pre-production stage. Now these are some photos that was taken. I can't remember who, but I think some of the behind-the-scenes team that was documenting the whole process from pre-production to post. Most of the time when we do pre-productions, there are things like contracts for the cast and crews. Now remember, we used to do this, or we used to shoot and run, right? Lips to Lips was shoot and run and avoid being caught by FINAS because you don't have a license. But for SHADOWPLAY, or even way before that, we started to realize the importance of having all this support. It becomes later, right? So we have actual contracts for cast and crews. We have release forms if you have extras and whatnot. When we go for location scouts, we make sure that we are asking for permissions for the locations. And some of the technical requirements for the film are discussed in the pre-production stage. As you can see at the back of Mr. Tony Yusuf there's a whiteboard that we start to break down things we need, like catering, budget, art department. All those are the common things that we discuss during pre-production. And we get every department's budget breakdown. So this is the important part of the puzzle. Getting the budget together with whatever we have collected, or we have put together a sum of amount to work on this film. But when we get our budget from every department, we sort of have to meddle around the budget so that it can fit the actual budget plus some buffer of additional cost or material that we need. So very tricky, because I can't do this alone. So we have Mr. Tony himself as the producer, Mr. Radi Khaled, who's also playing as a role, is one of the roles in this film, and of course our executive producer, Mr. Ken Petrie from 2710, who is all the way in the UK. Now back then, before there was this COVID thing, we were doing Zoom meetings with our producer back then, so to discuss everything from budgets, breakdowns, everything from legalities. So because working with an international partners like this, they want to make sure that we have all the papers sorted out, now including our insurance, our production licenses, and everything that is needed for the entire shoot. Now it feels like doing shadow play is like going through the whole process of legality like any other big budget films. The only thing that we are working on is a very minuscule budget that we have. So with all those put ahead, we try to work on a smaller scale team, and try to find out if we can put this together with a good, small and manageable team. So in the hands of the cast and crew, well, the cast is mostly confirmed by Tony himself, but the crew that we wanted to take, we want to make sure that we had the best of the best in the industry. Okay, of course we can't afford the topmost advance, but remember, we have to work on a minuscule budget, and whoever agrees to this must agree to the budget that we had. Okay, we do not want to actually disclose it, but I know it is a very small compared to any other film budget that we've done. So Praveen here is the DOP that we've selected. Now one of the reasons is also because we wanted to work on a non-destructive workflow that we have created, and I myself as post-producer have decided to go along the Blackmagic workflow, which is Blackmagic cameras to Blackmagic post-production all the way through to the end of the delivery. So that's Praveen with the USA 4.6K USA Mini Pro, and we have a great audio team from Sound Speed, Pojam and his gang, to record good professional audio on set. Now I cannot I have to repeat this again, because every time you have think about good picture, a lot of people forgot that they need good sound, because sound is like almost 90% of the time that is you are listening layers and layers of sound. There is so much to create such an environment compared to just a single image or frame that is only whatever you see. So the soundscape has to play along and to be very good. So recording, actual audio recording has to be very good, and I believe the Sound Speed team has done a great job. The next thing in the workflow pipeline, the most important part of the puzzle that a lot of producers ignore, are actually DIT, or digital image technicians. Now at the bottom right here, it's Bay, who is coincidentally the editor and also the colorist for SHADOWPLAY. So again, we're going to try to make sure that we can work with a small within budget. Bay was called on set to actually assist the DIT team, which is Yusri or G, to assemble scenes as we go along. So we're going to talk about that later, but here are the three most important part of the puzzle. Of course, we have the rest of the team, not to mention the art department by Paul, Hafsham. We have the other part that is most important is also to identify what are the problems we will face. Okay, so identifying the workflow issues and limitations. Okay, so first, when we try to create the workflows in the pre-production, as a post-producer, I try not to fix in post as much. I know this film will have a lot of visual effects involved, will have a post-production, color grading, whatnot involved in post, but at the pre-production stage is where we try to fix all these problems and put it on paper to make sure that can we do this on location, or can we do this as a practical effects to avoid visual effects costs, right? So try as not as much to fix it in post. Excuse me. Of course, we've decided the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K after several tests because we want to go ahead with something that is light. Excuse me. Dry throat. We tried to decide on a full ProRes 4444 workflow instead of a Cinema DNG RAW. Okay, remember guys, Blackmagic RAW wasn't available yet back then. It was only Cinema DNG RAW or ProRes. So, if RAW was or Blackmagic RAW was there, it would be much better for us because Blackmagic RAW technology is so much simpler to use and the best I've seen so far. Okay. So, oops, okay. So we can only afford 3. Actually there's 2 CF cut because 1 CF cut cost us about 2,000 ringgit back then, and CFast cut are not cheap. Okay, this is not CF or compact flash. Okay, this is CFast, which is the most expensive cut, and we can only afford 8 terabyte of hard disk, 2 of it based on the budget that we have. And because of these limitations, I told Tony, you have a ratio of 3:1, which means that rehearse, you have up to 3 takes per shot to make sure that we can fit this hard disk that we have with us, with the base budget we have. And we managed to squeeze 15 hell of a time of the shoot days for principal photography. So that's the most the basic pre-production identifying workflows, issues and limitations that we face, and to solve that before we go into production. So let's talk about Cinema DNG. I think this is gonna be a techie talk, so bear with me, but this is very important for people who are actually working with an independent feature film or any low budget film. Please listen, okay? When people said I want to shoot RAW, okay, think about it. RAW is actually the biggest file size that you need to store all these materials. It is a sequence of still image, and each of these frame, it's about 20 megabyte big. To work with these files, they are very cumbersome and complex that you really need a powerful computer, a CPU that is so intensive just to load it up. Because the way a RAW works, it needs to use a computer to process the information that is recorded on set, and this is really a non-production friendly to say, if I have a limited budget, don't think about shooting Cinema DNG because it's going to take up a lot of space if you don't have budget for your space. Excuse me, for this, for instance. So forget it. And then the next best thing is if you have Blackmagic RAW. Oops, sorry, my slides is not smooth today. Now this is the next codec that is available for all Blackmagic cameras, right? if you have the options of using the Ursa Mini or the Pocket 4K or 6K, you have this Blackmagic Raw. It is a hybrid codec. Its quality is similar to RAW, but it's smaller in size. It's a simpler workflow. You just need a good GPU or computer that has a good GPU to play it back, and half of the processing is done on the camera. The other half, you need a computer. So you don't need actually a good or powerful CPU just to run Blackmagic Raw, and it's a production friendly with a lot of metadata in it. Now, we wish we had this, but we did not. So we had to work with another codec that is available in the camera called the ProRes. Now, the Apple guys who is using Apple should know this. Okay, ProRes 4444 in 4K. It is a QuickTime movie, so it comes in like any other QuickTime media, and 1 hour of media would be about 500 gigabyte. So that's a 10-bit media. You have a 444 chroma subsampling. Now this is important because when we talk about color grading, if you used to shoot a camera that is low budget, now you have a DSLR that shoot 420. If you look at the specs of a camera, if you notice the number 420, you will not have full capability of doing color grading with it because you have lack of information of colors in that. So go for something that has a chroma subsampling of 4, which is almost like uncompressed. We're talking because the days of uncompressed are over, right? So ProRes is a simple workflow. You shoot, I offload, I play it back, no hassle, no conversion, no nothing, and all the metadata, date and time, all the information that comes on set are brought into post-production, and it is very useful for us in post. Okay, so that's how we decided to use ProRes, because we didn't have Blackmagic Raw back then. Okay, so we had so we go to for further recce for in pre-production. We straight away go for more recce or location scouting. Okay, now one of the things that you have to be aware of when you're doing location scout, points to note when you're doing location scouting: where will the sun rise or the sun set? Okay, I think a lot of cinematographers, DPs who do location scout do this as a homework, but as a producer you also have to play a part to understand whether this is doable. Okay, is this a doable set? Okay, where the sun is going to rise, is there available power if I were to plug in a power supply or my lights or camera batteries? Can we utilize one big location into separate sets? Now here, if you look, this is a this is a Museum Tun Razak, if you're not mistaken. It is one location with 3 separate points in the area: the main hallway, the rooftop, and the alleyway. So these 3 locations can be turned into 3 different sets. We try to minimize, to move around so much that we try to work in a small area with whatever locations we have to make it look like the set we need. Okay. The other point to note is noise level. If you look at the picture on the top right, there might be some construction going on at the back. Now, will that affect your shoot on the day you shoot? Are there any aeroplanes flying around during the day? Or where are the places to load your equipment? Because we don't want to actually come to the location and realize there's no stairs to go up the hill. You need to climb the hill on foot on a slope that is grassy and slippery, and you don't want people just to fall. Okay, so these are things that very important to note when you're looking for location, not just nice place, but are they accessible for everyone to use? Okay, the next is security in terms of were there people coming in and out, walking past our set, and because things get disappear, you never know. And of course you have to need permissions to go use these locations, right? So this is the other locations, the other side of the museum. And we have also the River of Life and the countdown clock, the CDC, which is the waterfall with the colored lights and the LED screen. This is the countdown clock for the year 2020 when they were erected there. So these are our main locations that we have. Okay, we have some other locations as well. So these are the actual locations. They are not prepared yet. This is the actual pre-pro location scout photos. You can see there Paul, Hafsham, and oops, I'm blocking the. You can see Paul, Hafsham, and Tony is in the background discussing about what can or not be done. Okay. So the main idea of shadow play is about lights. So a lot of these sets, if you look, they are neon lights. Somehow, somewhere, they are lights, and it's not neon noir. So you need nice ambience light. So when you are looking for spaces like that, you just have to find the correct spaces. Okay. Now the next thing is, because of all these locations, the sensitivity of using a place that doesn't belong to us is a very risky thing, especially in a museum. Now they have all these artifacts, they have well, exhibits or whatnot. We do not want to actually create any issues when we are doing this. So we need to take an insurance for all our production, be it small or big. Okay, it doesn't it is not as much as you think. Even for this, if I'm not mistaken, I can tell you offhand, it is about 7,000 to 8,000 ringgit we paid for the insurance to cover film all risk insurance. So if anything was broken and the company or the location trying to sue us, we're all covered. Okay, so this is by our insurance broker, by K Wealth Lab. Okay, you can look for them. That's their name, the insurance broker. So you can see all the information that is need to cover, specifically what is it for, how many crews will be there, how many cars will be there, what are the indemnity limit deductible from the cost, blah blah blah. You can ask K Wealth Lab about the insurance, but remember, this is the most important part that a lot of producers do not want to take. Okay, so insurance, production insurance, everything from your camera, your wardrobe, your character vehicles, if you have, if you lost them, camera broken, all can be insured. Okay, yes, 7,000 a lift. It's not much compared to about what we spent for the entire film, but I remember, if I'm not mistaken, we broke a TV set. I can't remember if we got it claimed. Okay, because of a car just accidentally broke the monitor. We got it claimed. Then so far nothing great happened, nothing bad happened that we need to cover, but this is a coverage that we need to take. What happened if it happens? It is too late. So it is just a way to cover our issues if we have one. So the next thing is to have a great AD to run our show, right? So oops, sorry, today my notes are flying around. Okay, Fendi Mazlan. Okay, Fendi, we all know Fendi. I think most of you knows him in the indie scene. So Fendi has been working from day one, from pre-production, to create a master breakdown of all the scenes and script. Now if you look at the sample over here, you can see the first 2 days are fully colored, and every color is a location. So you can see on the first day we have to jump 3 locations. On the second day, same location. Okay, same location. Third day is 2 locations, and this gives an idea of how many times we will move around. because moving from one location to next takes time. You need to wrap and unwrap, plug in, plug out, whatnot. So it takes a lot of time, and that's also depending on the weather. So far the weather was on us, good on us, except for just one day that we went through over the limit of the shoot. We had to reshoot because the sun rises. So I have to scold Mr. Tony, we got to do this again because now the sun has gone up. He almost cried, right, Tony? Yeah, just kidding. But it was something that we cannot overrule because, yeah, times just happen. Okay, so these are just some of the pictures behind the scene that I can show you. Okay, that's Sky Baha special appearance, and Tony with Magat. Okay, this was a scene in Petaling Street, behind Petaling Street. I'm not sure if the lights are there. This is one of those. This was the scene that I was talking about. Where we shot. I think this was about 4 o'clock in the morning, if I'm not mistaken. But when we do it again, I'm not sure whether this was the first batch or the second batch, but I remember this was the exact scene. We have to reshoot because the sun just rise. We want the whole thing to be night scene, and we couldn't get it. Okay, Julia Hartmans, our femme fatale. That's me and the camera department team. I think this was the last day of shoot, our wrap, and the rest. Now you can see, even though it's independent, but everything looks so big sets, big equipments. So this is all because we can fit the budget nicely so that everybody can have the toys to play with, big boys toys to play, especially the lighting department, because you need a lot of these light bulbs to create the neon noir scene. And one of the most important part, again, of the puzzle is having a good DIT, which is on your right, the guy with the goatee, is Yusri G. He handles all the data that comes from the camera, manage it, check it one by one, make sure there's no corrupted file, no audio problem, before he passed it to Bay, who actually starts to assemble them scene by scene on set. Okay, that's G with the iMac. Okay, because we're working on ProRes, using the Mac would be very useful because ProRes is an Apple codec. And once G has managed the files over, it's passed over to Bay. You can see on the two drives, the G technology drives, the two backups. So Bay will start to do assembly on the set as they are filming other scenes. Now, this is rare cases where editor was brought to set. Okay, there are a lot of times where people say, I can't afford to bring an editor on set. Well, this is why the workflow and the whole production was fast, and the turnaround was fast, because we know what we want to get. We want to make sure it's fast. There's no delay. So what does the digital image technician do then, besides the editor who's editing it? So what does G or Yusri does? He manages the in and out of the CFast cut that comes from the camera to the hard disk. So he does all the backups. He will check every integrity of the clips for issues like digital dropouts, corrupted data, maybe the microphone when buzzing. He will tell the audio guys if it's needed to reshoot. At least he will inform the production, and we are still there on location, and it's good. Okay, we'll check every audio clips. He will create reports for the producers in the UK because he wants to know what's going on, and he will make a second backup. Okay, and then he will start to input metadata like scene, shot, and take using Silverstack via the script. So he will know that this is script. You can see the clapperboard, it says scene 1, shot 1, take 1. He will put that in the clip file so that when Bay gets it, They know that this is scene 1, this is shot 1, this is take 1. So all information are passed over to the editor, and the editor's job is just to assemble. So because somebody has taken care of the syncing part, integrity check, everything from coming out from the cut to giving back the cut to the cameraman and telling the cameraman, yes, it's safe to format the cut. He even have the sticker system. When you get the cut from the camera, it's going to be red. That means do not use this until I convert or transfer over to silver stack. Once it's done, he will change the sticker to green. He make sure that when he pass to the camera, assistant camera, the cameraman will know, okay, he's confirmed that we can format this cut. So there will not be accidents like, oh, I accidentally formatted the cut. So accidents like that shouldn't happen. There are cases that it happens because you are yeah, you are not diligent. So, and then am I correct here? Yeah, sorry, my slides is not forgiving today. Just give me a second. So, and the digital image technician will create contact prints and reports for us producers. I wasn't there 24 a day, the whole entire 15 days, and also my UK producer only came right probably in the middle of the shoot. He flies into KL for about a day or two, then he's back again to London. But the only way to get him updated on our progress is to create these reports. It is our daily report from how many clips we shot per day, the total size we use for that day, and the contact print. That means every frame or the first frame of image of the film raw, it's printed in a thumbnail form like this. So Ken and everybody else in the production team will know we have shot or have this in a can. We can confirm that everything we've shot is there. Even our sound guys will give us their reports, and we double check every camera, every microphone tag. Like here you can see T1 mixed channel right, and then you have channel 3 is Anton, so Anton will be on channel 3 alone. Channel 4 will be boom mic or Lamia's, which is Julia Hartman's, and channel 5 will be boom mic, and so forth. So all these are very metadata driven files, so that when it's passed over to DIT, they know what are the files belongs to, right? And you can see the file name for our guys in SoundSpeed. They are very precise. Look at the file naming system: scene number, shot number, take number. So scene 75, shot number 1, take number 1. So the file name is very clear, concise. They don't leave us like untitled 1 or wave 001 or not. So it's very clear for the whole production to know what this audio file belongs to, right? Because of the metadata. So I make them very clear that I wanted all this report, and they are a very efficient audio guys. All right, oops, so jumping around. So we finish 15 days of principal photography plus 2 more additional days of B-rolls. Now B-rolls are just establishing shots. Now I heard about recent B-rolls stigma, but I'm not going to talk about that. But the actual B-rolls here are just cutaways of Kuala Lumpur, underpass. We have drone shots that we shot later even, and all the other necessary driving shots that had the car of Anton Shaw driving on the road. So and then we go into post-production. So in post-production, bringing over everything on set earlier, we have already achieved so much that we have assembled almost the entire film on set. So I remember when on the last day we wrapped, an NAB, which is the National Broadcasters Association in Las Vegas, just launched DaVinci Resolve 15. We were on 14. And then on version 15, there was some feature that we liked and kind of, hey, you know, maybe it might work. We sort of, and I personally told Bay, said, let's move from 14 to 15 because we just started post-production. So his assembly was done in Resolve 14, and in post-production we moved to Resolve 15. At that time it was still fresh out of NAB. So before we go into that, my plan to actually have a good post-production schedule. Okay, now one of the key function of post-producer, okay, is to actually create and identify a schedule like this. I would need to identify when is our deadline so that I can work backwards from the day we need to deliver. For instance, a festival, right? If you can see the last bottom green right, it's blocking my camera. So the bottom right green 2 blocks there is my deadline, which is about 23rd of May. Okay, 23rd of May. So if I knew that 23rd of May I need to deliver something, I work backwards and plan a post-production schedule for the entire team, from VFX to audio post to editing to everything that a post-production needs to be done on this film. Okay, and of course creating the workflow from start to finish. Now remember, I have already presented my post-production budget earlier on in pre-production before this film was even approved. So once that approved, this schedule comes up next. And we knew that we had to send for a certain festival back then, and that was the cutoff date. Now this is most important to know, that without a cutoff date, the film will not finish. A lot of time people ask me, Zali, how long do you take to edit a film? Well, I will ask you again, when do you want it to complete? Where do you want to send or submit to a festival? If you come and tell me next week, then of course it's impossible. But you give me a date, and I will try to work backwards, and I will see is that ample time for us to complete the post-production. And based on that number of days, and then is where I create the post budget for the whole entire film. So I created a workflow solution for the post-production timeline, including the listed deliverable list, which we will come later. All right, so technical again, the total was about 11 terabytes of rushes per hard disk, and remember we only had 8 terabytes to 8 terabytes, so we sort of run a bit past because some of the slow motion shot, the under crank or over crank shot or a slow motion shot needs to be shot in a raw cinema DNG. So there's no way around it. So we have some raw, which is cinema DNG, some, not much, and the rest of them the ProRes 444. So at the end we end up with additional 3 terabyte on top of the 8. So, and we have to have 2 of those copy. Okay, so what we did on set, again, when the DIT pass it over to the, just now earlier on, this was supposed to be the early notes, clip renaming, the audio visual synchronization, okay, QC every clip that comes from the camera, create smart collections on scene, and on set edit right away, assembling the scenes that are crucial, especially VFX shots. So Bay did this over, once the DIT passed over the clips to him, he straight away did this scene by scene every day. And it also helps the director and the DP to check for light continuity, wardrobe continuity. Actually, what the DIT can do is actually assist everyone on set. They are not just people who are just handling data. They are able to play back your footages that they shot an hour ago or 2 hours ago, and you can come to them and say, I need to see and check a scene. So when Bay has already edited something, maybe the wardrobe wants to check the continuity of the way the jacket was worn, and just come over and check. Of course, this could be done early on, but what if we missed? I missed taking the continuity of his hand, of his movement. So we can go back to the DIT or the editors while on set and check all this information. They were very, very useful, and everybody's helping everyone, okay, including the editor himself. Okay, hold on. So, and after shoot every day, after we make the 2 backups, we will go back to the office and create the 3rd backup. So because we have a big, large permanent storage that we can actually store additional drive, just as a purpose and a strategy to actually have 3 backups. It's a good practice to have 3 backups at 2 different locations, or 2 different types of media, and 1 offsite, which is the office. So every time the DIT carries the 2 discs on set, he has already backed 1 up in the office. If anything happens to the drives that be on set tomorrow, touch wood, we have 1 backup at the office, right? So this is a good way to actually know the 3-2-1 concept, right? 3 backups, 2 separate media, which is hard disks, 2 separate hard disks at 1 off-site location. Now this is a very practical backup theory that is practiced all over post-production, professional post-production, including Netflix, okay? So let's see what's next. Okay, so this is the post workflow. The DIT do the backup, QC, sync, assembly, save project, and then pass it over to the editor, creates the storyline, cut, fine cut, put the 10 music in post, conforming to the final master, because when he edits on the lower resolution file, not the 4K file, just to speed things up, and then pass over to the VFX team, and then the audio post takes over, and audio post is done by Soundniverse at later stage, and then the color grade stage. Last but not least, of course, the deliverables. So that's pretty much until the point where the whole post-production is. I'm going to show you some of the before and after, but before that, if there's any question that I can take, if anyone want to ask, I don't want to scroll too much here, but let's see. Halif says semangat indie but budget tak indie. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Blocking, siapa blocking? Okay. All right, anyone else here? No question? Okay, I'm going to show you just like a before and after for color grading and also visual effects stuff for SHADOWPLAY. So here is color grading by Bay. So I just want you to see what it looks like before it was graded and then after it was graded. So just enjoy this small video. Okay, so that's pretty much on the color grading part. Now before I come into that, I want to scroll a bit and show you something that we have to take note of, some of the why some of this stuff needs to be done. Now these are Stellar Dreams. The music that you listen is for these two guys, these two in the background there. They are the actual musician for this the whole entire film. So they are there during the shoot, for the pre-shoot before this. But one of the things in post-production that we had to do is to make sure that the clearance of brands, okay, brands that, because once we have to go to international sales, brands like this might cause a problem in whether we have release any special release by brand. So what we need to do is we make sure that when we do the grading, we have actually to remove or we can try to remove via small simple VFX method to remove brandings that is so big that is nothing to do with the whole entire film. Now this is also crucial to understand when we start to do international sales. All these brandings need to be clear. All right, no logo of brands or something that is non-related from the film you do not have clearance to. So make sure all that has to be clear in the post-production stage. Usually that's why it's called the post-production budget. Okay. Okay, next, let's talk about some visual effects stuff. Now I know I didn't get involved much on the visual effects, but give some of pointers to Tony and also the VFX artist, which is Zaidi Bakar, who did a lot of great works for this film to make it what it seems to be, what you are looking at it. Some of this has visual effects. Now I have to warn you that if you are phobia over looking at a lot of bloods, Dara, please don't watch this video next, because a lot of the films, a lot of this VFX has involved with adding more blood than the actual blood we had, just to make it look bloody mess. Right? So if you are afraid to look at even fake blood, just don't look at this video right now. Right? So let's see if I have that. So here we, oops. Okay, sorry. All right, so warning, graphical content, lot of blood mess. Enjoy. Okay, that's it. Thank you, Zaidi. Looks good. So that's the visual effects side. You can see there's a lot of work, putting a lot of blood and mess to make it look messy. I think he did a great job and do justice to the film. I think that Tony actually wanted that way, so we had a lot of added more bloods to it. So now we talk about the next thing is about formats and versions. Okay, now when we want to deliver, a lot of producer would just think, oh Zali, I just need a DCP for this project. Okay, just one DCP, which is for the Malaysian cinema scene. But to tell you the truth, okay, one DCP will not take you anywhere, because if you don't meet the delivery standard of any major cinema, television or the internet or any OTT platforms that are out there, whether it's locally or internationally, your project just gets stuck at only finishing in the cinema. All right, okay, most of our producers will be having one cinema print and one television print, that's it. But because a lot of international distributors needs you to have a checklist of various format they need, things like I need it without subtitles, I need it without the text, I need it without the main titles, because the main title is going to be converted or translated to another language, whatnot. So these are deliverables that you need to check, make sure that you have all this, because if not, after your film has been completed in post, you realize that you cannot make this version anymore because the files are no longer there. So this is a sample of what SHADOWPLAY deliverables looks like. We have 2K DCP, 4K DCP, 4K DPX, audio, you have your surround, stereo, whatnot, you have your behind the scene, we have H.264 version, flat, scope 4K, scope flat. Of course, any higher resolution screenshots for all the film has to be exported out. Now, these are the lists that is given to us by the distributor in the UK in order for them to make accept it as an international sale, right? So there's more screenshots and not whatnot. And the most part is the master itself. So what other masters do we have? So if you look at down there, the main master is SHADOWPLAY 4K TXL, which is textless. Now, textless means that everything, the whole entire film has the whole entire film without any titles, subtitles, and even end credits. Okay, so these are just some of the jargons that are given to us. You have texted, textless, subless. I know there's a lot of this that you can go along, but again, you have to actually discuss this with the distributor that you're working with to make your final sales. Okay, and one more. Okay, yeah, this is the fine, and continue from the master. So we have 4K textless stereo master, we have 4K texted ProRes surround master, we have 4K texted stereo master, and we also have the 25 frames per second version for the subtitles and also the trailer. Now remember guys, this is for the UK. If I were to do a sale, or let's say this film is being taken by a US company, they would want you to require to do a 30 frames per second conversion or version for the television. So the list of deliverables is actually a long list. If you are a producer, don't just simply think that I need a DCP and a television cut, because I will tell you, you will be in dilemma the moment a television, let's say in Singapore, wanted you to give the one without the Malay subtitle. They want you to clean, and you have all your subtitles embedded to your project, and all the files are not there anymore. You lose, and then you start to make all this black box and just to cover the subtitle, which looks weird. So remember to check your deliverables list, what is needed for your sales, especially international sales. So one of the thing about SHADOWPLAY, and also I learned this from Spread also have international sales. So we had a long list of deliverables we need to export, just the purpose of selling it outside of your country. Okay, so this is something that you want to make sure you have the access to the list, okay, from your distributor. Oops, I don't say thank you yet, that's too fast. Okay, so I think that's pretty much I need to have today. But before that, let's take a look at the trailer in 2K. Okay, enjoy the trailer first.
What do you desire most, Anton?
No, being a PI, I'd always imagined it to be more glamorous. Grow up.
It's about an ordinary man who discovers his extraordinary powers to alter reality with his dreams.
Why is this happening to me?
Look at me. What do you see?
You think this is a fucking delusion? I know you're fucking delusional! Where is Lamia?
Do you believe in fate?
Slay the beast.
Sorry, I forgot to on my mic. Okay. Yes, if you want to watch the entire film, please go to Vimeo on demand and support us by subscribing or renting the film on video on demand. Just search for SHADOWPLAY. And I'm willing to take question. Okay, so yes, question here by Zafir Aziz. On production, your DP shoot berapa frame per second? Okay, hold on, yeah. Okay, so Zafir, okay, this thing is about understanding what is your deliverable. So we know that we had the deliverables list on 24 and 25, so we shot it on 24. Okay, however, if you have a deliverables you need to send like 24, 25 and 30, it is advisable to shoot at 2398. Now this 2398 is a mathematically proper way to convert from 2398 to 24, 2398 to 25, and also 2398 to 2997, which is 30 frames per second. But I don't want to talk about technical, but for that reason, your decision of shooting which frame rate is decided on your deliverables that you want to send in the final stage. So this is something that you have to make sure that, are you sure you want to shoot this at this frame rate? So remember, film is always 24 frames per second. Television is always 25 frames per second. If you have been shooting 30 frames per second, it's because you have learned it from YouTube, because people under YouTube are mostly foreigners. So when you shoot on 30 frames per second, yes, it is only good for your online platforms, because when you upload them on your YouTube, they actually convert it in a 30 frames per second in the background. But if you're doing for films, for cinemas, it is advisable and a standard to shoot at a 24 frames per second, because this is what the standard of cinema is, 24 frames per second. If you're shooting for television, then you shoot at 24. But for this case, SHADOWPLAY, because we need to export to a 25, going from 24 to 25 is just a matter of 4 seconds speed up. The audio post guys will know how to actually adjust the pitching that's changed, so that when I created a 25 timeline, the sound will be the same. Okay, work with your audio post on this, but 24 to 25 is not a big jump. The problem comes when you go from 24 to 30. You have to have some kind of hardware or to convert this frame rate so that it will be precise and useful for broadcast for that international standard. All right, so any other questions that yeah, sorry, yeah, just now I was forgot to switch on my mic. Anybody else have any questions I can take from here? Linus, there are so many processes here, many different post house. If something go wrong, do you rebuild the producer? Is it negotiated in or is it packaged? Okay, I don't have my budget breakdown here, but here is the thing. I have never packaged my price for a certain post-production. There are no package price. This is always itemized. So every item that is done is already accounted for based on our deliverables. So we had that deliverables, this is how much it's going to spend, this is how much it's going to cost. Anything that comes after or the request that is not in the list, it is additional charges. The post company or the producer or the post house can even charge an additional cost on top of the actual listed deliverables. So in a way, when we produce our invoices, we have to state what are the things I'm going to deliver at this price. So this is why there's no such thing as package, because I don't want like, Zali, you package for me the whole entire post. Okay, if I package you entire post, I give you one DCP, would that be possible? And he says okay, that means the producer have no knowledge that one DCP is not enough, right? So I have to actually tell the client what are the things I can give you for that amount of money, and you pay for that. So that amount of deliverables are payable. Every single file exported, even to the point if they need a DVD, I charge a single DVD 3 ringgit, if I'm not mistaken, right? I remember we had to send for the Oscars nomination for Sprayed and Radar. We had to hand 300 DVDs printed. That's chargeable. How much you get to charge for the DVD print. So these are things that you have to really itemize everything in post-production. As a post-producer, and this is also because of where I am for this shadow play, I've already itemized everything. Make sure we don't actually over budget or spend more than what is needed. Okay, so Linus, I hope you answer you that. Singapore pakai package. I'm sorry, Fadli. I wish we can change that, but I'm trying to change that here in Malaysia, because ever since I went for the post-producing class in German 2016 under a post lab, or used to call EP2C, learning from all the other experienced producers, post producers, it is they laughed when I said we have a package price in Malaysia. They said, no, you shouldn't have a package price, because what if somebody just come up to you and say, I need this. So if you have a package price, they can just technically, a producer can ask you for anything under the sun for the same price you give in a package. Fair, right? Because you said package, the whole thing is inside. So you said one package post-production for SHADOWPLAY. Okay? So Tony can just come to me and say, Zali, I need a 8K export. I cannot say no because it's in the package, right? What is in the package is more important than what can you give a package. So this is something that you have to make sure it is itemized and never fail to produce when the client asks. Okay, Lutfi, kalau kita perlukan slow motion shot, mungkin gunakan 20. Bolehkah kita convert jadi 24 frames? Well, when you have shoot high frame rate, okay, you can make it speed up again anytime. So, but usually what happen is you have to plan. Okay, kita kena plan when you want to shoot high frame rate. What is it for? And it's always the base frame. So kalau you shoot 120 frames per second, your timeline is still 24 frames per second. It is playing back 120 frames per second on the 24 frames per second timeline. So just to understand that some cameras that you can actually record high speed would be embedded into the file itself. So that means bila you take out, you play back, it's already slow-mo. Some hardware or cameras, it's only a metadata. You need to bring into the editing system, slow it down, and you actually can see the result. So it depends on how your workflow is, but if you are planning for slow-mo, that is why for SHADOWPLAY, where we decide to do the slow-mo or 120 frames per second, the only function that allows to do that is via the Cinema DNG RAW, because ProRes couldn't do 120 frames per second encoding. So that is why we need the RAW file, and then only we convert it back to 24 frames per second and look at the 120 frames slow-mo speed. So you have to plan on that post-production pipeline. When do you need the slow-mo and not? So the only problem is, at times when you have slow-mo shots and then suddenly you say, okay, I want to speed it up, it is a no problem. Okay, when you have something that is slow-mo, you have entire frames, you have the whole full frames inside the 120 frames. If you do speed up, you can get back the original speed with no problem. But the problem comes when you shoot 24 frames per second and then suddenly in post-production you cakap, I want to do 120 frames per second effect. That will give an artifacts or blurry image of because there are no frames exist, and the computer needs to generate new frames, and it will create an artifact that is not nice compared to a normal shot that is done via slow-mo. Okay, so Leonard, maknanya kalau camera setting ikut 180 degree, the consistency of Fucheng Seni will not be affected. Yes, correct. You just maintain. If you maintain the 180 degrees shutter, again, you have to remember there are cameras with global shutter, and there are cameras with what they call it, digital shutter. So you have to actually do tests. I cannot say whether one camera is good or the other is not. For SHADOWPLAY, we did a few tests, whether you can do a slow-mo at certain frame rate, does it look right or not. So you don't actually do this on location only to discover in post. It's like, oh, doesn't work. So remember, camera tests are important. You know, one of the chapters that I missed out was a camera test. We had to do some camera tests to make sure that it works for our workflow, and whether the ProRes can be handled correctly, and color grading can works perfect with the color space we have. So that is pretty much it. All right. So any other questions on that? Oh, a lot of technical questions, guys. Challenging. Yes, 4%. And the others from running script also said, yep, 24-25 is about 4% change. So thank you. Any other question I missed above? Sorry, I cannot be looking this and that. So I hope I given some a good 1 hour, 1.5 hour, almost 1.5 hour of what we went through to produce SHADOWPLAY. So if you have the time to actually watch the entire film, please go to Vimeo and catch it there and watch the 4K version. That's the only 4K version you can see that is on Vimeo. So on behalf of my producers, which is 2710, Radical Films, Abaradi, Mr. Ken Petri, Tony Pitra, director, producer, and me, myself, and Kino Eye Pictures, thank you very much for attending this webinar and listening to me talking about SHADOWPLAY. But if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Okay, here. Okay, so sorry. Okay, so feel free to contact me at my email address here. And take care, guys. Stay safe and hope you have a great weekend ahead. So slay the beast. Thank you.